Greetings, dwellers of the dark side of history. Today, the story I will tell you will be a chilling testament to how power and fame can turn a man into both a god and a devil at the same time. Imagine an emperor. He thinks of himself as the greatest artist in the world, singing on stage, whispering poetry with his lyre. Yet those same hands do not hesitate to spill his mother's blood, take the lives of his wives, and stain the souls of tens of thousands of innocent people. Imagine an emperor who, according to legend, did not shy away from burning the whole of Rome just so he could build his palace, the Golden House. And then, to cover it all up, he blamed it on that strange budding sect, setting them on fire, alive as human torches, to light up his gardens. Yes, I'm not joking. As much as it sounds like the script of a horror movie, what I'm about to tell you is reality, torn straight from the darkest pages of Rome's so-called glorious history. Our subject today is the artist tyrant, whose life was filled with scandals and perversions, enough to put even Caligula to shame. Emperor Nero. Just like many tyrants, Nero's story actually began innocently. He was only 16 when he took the throne. Young, handsome, the perfect figure to win the people's love. And do you know who stood by his side? None other than the great philosopher Seneca and the commander of the Praetorian Guard, Sporus. Together, they looked like the team that would carry Rome into a golden age. His first 5 years were so successful that historians call them the 5 years of Nero. Taxes were lowered, cooperation with the Senate flourished, and justice was, at least to some degree, upheld. Everyone believed young Nero would bring spring to Rome. But Nero was, in truth, nothing more than a puppet in the hands of his ambitious and scheming mother, Agrippina. Agrippina had done everything to put her son on the throne, poisoning her husband, eliminating her rivals. Now she wanted to rule Rome through Nero. But there was a problem. Nero was growing up. He was tired of living in his mother's shadow. And it was here that the kind-hearted, art-loving young man began to reveal the monster rising from within. Was it power that poisoned him? His mother's suffocating control? Or was there always a dark soul lurking beneath that artist's mask? The first major break came with matricide. Nero was so sick of his mother's grip on him and her insatiable hunger for power that he decided to get rid of her. But he tried it in such a clumsy way that it became one of history's darkest comedies. He first put her on a specially designed ship meant to sink. The plan was simple. The ship would go down and it would look like an accident. But Agrippina, with her ancient instincts for intrigue, survived the wreck and swam ashore. Driven mad by this failure, Nero tried again, but once more failed. In the end, he had to send his soldiers to finish the job and kill her. According to legend, Agrippina's last words to the soldiers were, "Strike my womb, for it bore a monster." This was the turning point for Nero, to kill one's own mother. Even in Rome, such an act was unheard of. Now, the only person who could hold a mirror to him, the only one who could restrain him, was gone. From that moment on, Nero began tumbling down a bottomless abyss like a runaway cart with no brakes. Freed from his mother's control, Nero's true passions emerged: art. But for an emperor, such a passion was shameful. In Roman society, performing on stage, singing, acting, those were things reserved for slaves and the lower classes. An emperor's duty was to lead armies, command the Senate, and bring peace to conquered lands. But Nero abandoned all this to declare himself the greatest singer, the finest poet, the fastest charioteer. He sang on stage, played his lyre, recited long poems. It's said he had the doors locked to prevent audiences from leaving his performances. Even pregnant women supposedly gave birth during these shows. He went to the Olympics, and just because he entered, won every contest. Even when he fell from his horse, he was still declared the victor. Imagine the senators of Rome secretly mocking their emperor, while Nero would do anything for applause. This was no mere love for art. It was a pathological narcissism fed by absolute power. He had lost all sense of reality. Yet beneath this narcissistic artist's mask lay a terrifying tyrant. He forced his mentor, the wise philosopher Seneca, to commit suicide out of jealousy. He banished and later killed his first wife, Octavia, daughter of Emperor Claudius. Not stopping there, he even killed his second wife, the pregnant Poppaea Sabina, allegedly kicking her in the belly in a fit of rage. These violent outbursts and murders became an inseparable part of his character. But within this monster grew a twisted, diseased kind of regret. After Poppaea's death, Nero fell into a deep melancholy and longing. He declared her a goddess, erected statues of her, but it wasn't enough. He wanted her physically by his side again. And here, Nero's perversions reached their darkest, most unthinkable stage. Obsessed with his dead wife, Nero searched all of Rome for someone resembling her. And he found one, a young freedman named Sporus, who looked so much like Poppaea that Nero reportedly lost his mind upon seeing him. But resemblance alone was not enough. Nero didn't just want Sporus near him. He wanted to transform him into Poppaea. And this transformation wasn't about clothes or jewelry. Nero gave one of the cruelest, most inhuman orders in history. He had Sporus castrated. Yes, you heard that right. He robbed a young man of his identity, his future, his very life. To forcibly remake him into a woman, Sporus was no longer himself. He was now Nero's sick fantasy made flesh, his new Sabina. But this perversion didn't stay hidden in the palace. Nero announced this marriage to the world. He dressed Sporus like an empress, adorned him with jewels, gave him Poppaea's clothes. And in Greece, before all of Rome, he held an official wedding ceremony. Torches were lit, offerings made, vows exchanged. Imagine it, the Emperor of Rome marrying a castrated man renamed after his dead wife. Even for those times, it was an unthinkable scandal. A bitter joke spread in Rome. How much better it would have been for the world if Nero's father had married such a woman. Nero paraded his new wife, Sabina, Sporus, everywhere, at ceremonies, banquets, public events. He demanded that people salute and honor him as an empress. This wasn't just a personal perversion, it was an insult to all Roman values, traditions, and state order. Nero was saying, I am the emperor. For me, there are no rules, no limits, no morals. Whatever I wish I do, and you will accept it. And what became of poor Sporus, the victim of this monstrous charade? His story is perhaps the most tragic summary of Nero's cruelty. After Nero's suicide, Sporus was left unprotected. First, one of the Praetorian commanders who tried to seize power made him his wife. Then, Emperor Otho forced him into the same role. Finally, Emperor Vitellius sought to humiliate him further by making him play the part of a rape virgin in the gladiatorial games. Unable to bear this final degradation, Sporus took his own life. Nero's twisted empress could not escape his curse, even after her master's death. This was Nero's ultimate monstrosity. He not only killed people, but also stole their souls and identities, leaving behind only tragic wrecks. And then came the fateful year 64, when the infamous Great Fire of Rome broke out. For 9 days, flames consumed 3/4 of the city. Tens of thousands lost their homes, many their lives. And what was Emperor Nero doing? According to the historian Tacitus, he stood on his balcony, lyre in hand, singing of Troy's burning. This image gave rise to the legend of Nero fiddling while Rome burned, and cemented one of the greatest scandals in history. Did he truly start the fire? We may never know for sure. But what he did afterward left little doubt. On the very land reduced to ashes, he built a massive legendary palace complex for himself, the Domus Aurea, the Golden House. Golden-plated walls, precious stones, ivory decorations, dining halls with revolving ceilings, banquet rooms showering rose petals from above. While the people were homeless, Nero built himself a paradise on Earth. But of course, he needed a scapegoat. He had to cover up his guilt and ambition. So he blamed the strange, secretive community that was just emerging in Rome, the Christians. What followed was one of history's bloodiest persecutions. Christians were torn apart by dogs, crucified, and worst of all, burned alive as human torches to light Nero's gardens at night. He drenched them in tar and set them ablaze. All for his ego, all to protect his power. He inflicted unspeakable torture on thousands of innocent people. This wasn't just cruelty, it was inhuman savagery. The music swells, tempo rising. But how long could such cruelty, ego, madness, and perversion last? Only so long. Nero's insane behavior lit the fire of rebellion across Rome. The armies mutinied, governors rose against him. The Senate finally gathered the courage to declare him an enemy of the state and sentence him to death. By then, all of Rome hated him. He was utterly abandoned. He fled, knowing he would be captured and tortured worse than any of his victims. He hid in a villa, and even in his last moments, his narcissism and dramatic artist's spirit shone through. Trembling with a dagger in hand, he cried, "What an artist dies in me!" turning even his death into theater. Finally, with the help of a servant, he drove the dagger into his throat and killed himself. It was the year 68, and Rome was finally rid of its artist emperor. So, I ask you, friends, was Nero just a misguided youth, crushed under his mother's ambition, addicted to applause, or was he cruel by nature? Perhaps, like Caligula, driven mad by a mysterious illness, Nero too lost himself in the darkness of absolute power. Or maybe he was simply one of history's most narcissistic personalities, a man who lived only for attention, whose tragic story turned an artist into a tyrant. We will never know for certain, but Nero's story remains one of the most terrifying and cautionary tales of how limitless power, ego, and the absence of morality can consume a human being. And so, friends, we come to the end of another episode of The Dark Side of History. What do you think about Nero? Was he an artist or a monster? Share your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoy exploring such complex, dark, and unbelievable figures of history, don't forget to subscribe, like the video, and ring that bell. Until the next time we peel back another dark layer of history, take care and farewell.